5 minutes before the biggest board presentation of my career, my entire project folder vanished. Every diagram, every client slide, every week of preparation, gone. Standing in that glass-walled conference room, my stomach sank as the CEO's nephew, smug, uninvited, told the board, "Don't worry, I've got it covered." What he didn't know was that I had a secret backup. And when his empty screen glared in front of everyone, I made sure the recovery file name, uploaded by me, stayed right there on the projector for him to choke on. Watch this story to the end because karma prefers a professional setting. We post daily office justice and corporate revenge stories featuring people who refuse to be walked over. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment the part that hits hardest, the one that made you say, "That's exactly how payback should feel." Some victories smell like coffee and PowerPoint. This one began in the 26th floor conference room of Grafton Wilde Consulting, the kind of place where quiet ambition wore tailored suits and stress was part of the decor. To understand why that night became legendary, you have to know who I was before it happened. A mid-level strategy consultant, smart, methodical, utterly invisible. My name's Laura Mitchell, 31, senior project analyst in our corporate integrations division. I'd spent 5 years building a reputation that didn't sparkle, but held, the dependable kind. The person called when deadlines tightened and presentations had to be flawless. I wasn't flashy, and that meant in a company obsessed with executive presence, I was often ignored by the loud ones who climbed ladders through charm instead of work. And then came Brendan, the CEO's nephew. Brendan Hale, a recent MBA grad with family access and none of the humility. He joined as a strategic liaison, a title no one could define, but apparently justified a corner cubicle and a company-issued credit card. Our CEO, Tom Hale, beamed during Brendan's introduction. "He's got fresh ideas," Tom said. "Let's give him space to lead." Space he quickly filled with noise. Imagine a 28-year-old with brand new loafers, a permanent smirk, and a vocabulary of buzzwords: synergy, disruption, agile innovation. He moved through the office like he invented coffee meetings. Within weeks, he had inserted himself into meetings, retitled other people's projects, and rephrased bullet points like he was doing us favors. I kept my distance until he attached himself to my project. Our division had been working for 6 months on a contract with Rutherford Dynamics, a potential $40 million client, specializing in industrial analytics. They needed a streamlined integration strategy, my specialty, and I'd been assigned to lead the presentation to the board for final approval. That pitch could make or break my promotion to senior manager. I poured myself into it. 6 detailed case studies, custom data visualizations, and a projected growth model built line by line over sleepless nights. I'd rehearsed until I could present it in my dreams. Then 3 weeks before the meeting, Brendan showed up at my desk with that effortless entitlement that only nepotism breeds. He dropped a file folder on top of my notes. "Uncle Tom wants me to shadow the presentation process. Add a little executive polish." I smiled carefully. "I've already finalized the structure, but feedback's welcome." He grinned. "Oh, I'm not feedback, I'll be presenting. It'll look better if leadership family delivers the pitch. Optics, Optics. I'd built 6 months of expertise, and he was talking optics. Inside, my pulse jumped, but outwardly, I nodded. "Then you'll need to know the details." He waved his hand. "We'll simplify. Big picture stuff sells better than technical jargon. I'll just need your deck." That was the moment I knew something would go wrong. When someone asks for the keys to your car and calls it a test drive, keep the spare. Over the next 2 weeks, Brendan hijacked every prep meeting. He cut crucial technical slides, replacing them with stock photos of city skylines. He changed the title from Data-Driven Integration Strategy to Revolutionizing Industrial Synergy. It looked like a parody. Each time I offered analysis, numbers proving why his edits flatlined our proposal, he'd cut me off with, "Laura, you're great with data, but let me handle the storytelling. Executives love stories." Translation: "Sit quiet, analyst. Let the family talk." By the final week, even my boss, Karen Wu, looked uneasy. "She's family," she whispered privately. "Just keep your head down. Let him have the spotlight. If his pitch works, we all win. If it fails, Tom will protect the rest." That's the curse of every decent employee. We're told to endure incompetence because it comes packaged in privilege. I stayed late the evening before the presentation, double-checking every figure. The office lights dimmed to a sterile dusk, while the city outside flickered like circuit boards. I saved my finished deck, 156 slides of data clarity, to our shared Grafton server. Out of habit bred from paranoia, I also uploaded a copy to my personal encrypted cloud drive. When I finally left, cleaners were already mopping the hall floors. Brendan's office light was still on. Through the frosted glass, I saw him at his desk, scrolling through something on a USB stick. He caught my reflection in the glass and smirked, lifting his coffee cup in a mock toast. I drove home uneasy, the kind of unease that seeps into dream fragments, folders disappearing, emails vanishing, an audience laughing without sound. By dawn, those dreams would be prophecy. The next morning, the boardroom looked like a polished movie set. Mahogany table gleaming, water carafes lined like trophies, screens ready for projection. I arrived early with my laptop and my standard pre-pitch rhythm. Check projector connection, ensure backup files loaded, breathe. At precisely 9:15 a.m., I opened the server folder. Empty. Not a single file. My throat tightened. I refreshed. Nothing. Every subfolder, gone. Even the hidden temp files. Panic surged through my chest like static, the kind that makes your pulse feel loud in your ears. Karen noticed my expression. "Everything okay?" I swallowed hard. "My presentation folder's gone." She widened. "Gone?" "I backed it up yesterday," I said, more to convince myself. I connected to my cloud drive. The green sync icon flickered. Thank God, it had uploaded right after midnight. Just then, the door swung open. Brendan waltzed in, blazer unbuttoned, smile already smug. "Morning, team. Don't worry, I'll steer this one." He handed USB drives to the boardroom assistant. "Same file as last night. Rutherford Final B. H. Hill. Load that onto the main system." I stared at him. "Funny, I don't remember sending you a final version." He grinned without looking up. "Because you didn't. I exported it myself. Needed a few last-minute adjustments." Karen's jaw tightened. "Is that why the shared folder's empty?" Brendan tilted his head, as if genuinely puzzled. "Empty? Maybe IT's running maintenance. Anyway, we're good." I wanted to shout, to accuse, but all I said was, "Right, let's see those adjustments." 10 minutes later, the board filed in, CEO Tom Hill at the head, CFOs, department heads, and Rutherford's representative video dialed from Chicago. It was the biggest crowd I'd ever presented to. Brendan stood confidently in front of the screen. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, shoulders broad, grin rehearsed, "I'm thrilled to unveil our revolutionizing industrial synergy strategy, crafted by our brilliant team." He clicked to the first slide, blank. Second slide, an empty blue gradient, with no text. Third, same. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. Minor technical hiccup," he said, pretending nonchalance. The CEO frowned. "Did you check the file?" Brendan clicked again. A single sentence appeared. "Insert content here." Laughter rippled lightly through the boardroom. He flushed, tapping keys harder. "We, had some version control issues. IT's fault surely, but I can summarize the concepts." He began speaking nonsense. "Our approach leverages cross-sector analytics for maximum synergy potential." It was vapor, empty sound. The CEO's brows knit tighter. "Brendan, this was supposed to be client-ready." He stammered. "Right, just a minute. These slides must be missing from the local drive, but..." That was when I decided to end it. I reached for my own laptop, fingers trembling not from fear, but restraint. "Excuse me?" I said quietly enough that only Karen and the nearest board members heard. "I might have a working copy." The CEO turned toward me, irritation mixed with the faintest hint of hope. "You do?" "Yes," I said, plugging in the HDMI cable. The projector flickered. And there it was, my full presentation, crisp and complete. At the top corner of the screen, the Cloud ID tag glowed in neat white font. Uploaded by LMITCHELL. Brendan froze mid-breath. The CEO looked from the screen to his nephew, then back to me. "Go ahead, Ms. Mitchell. Let's see what our brilliant team really put together."
For a moment, I could hear only the hum of the projector. The room felt balanced on a knife's edge. Half of me wanted to bolt. The other half had been training for this exact second for years. I clicked the remote once and began to speak. Rutherford Dynamics approached us with 3 core concerns: integration downtime, data security, and cost redundancy. What you're seeing now is our proposed roadmap addressing all 3. Graphs, charts, and key metrics filled the screen in rhythmic succession. Every line I uttered steadied my heartbeat. The anxiety that had burned all morning began to settle into something sharper: clarity. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Brendan sinking down into his chair, face red, fingers twisting together under the table. Every board member turned their attention toward me, as if the earlier disaster had never happened. I didn't gloat. I simply delivered. Slide after slide, every metric supported by evidence, every visual clean. Months of my missed weekends came to life in that room. By the time I toggled to the final case study, the board members were leaning forward, not out of curiosity, but genuine engagement. When I finished, the silence was thicker than thunder, just long enough for the synopsis to land. Then came applause. Polite at first, then stronger. Richard Klein, the CFO, nodded toward me. Now that was a presentation. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. Tom Hale turned to his nephew, voice measured. "Brendan, where exactly was this version?" Brendan stammered, a desperate half-smile stretching his face. I must have uploaded the wrong file, maybe my export corrupted. Honestly, I didn't touch..." Tom cut him off with a raised hand. The way he did it, silent, deliberate, spoke louder than shouting. "We'll discuss this later. Miss Mitchell, thank you for salvaging this meeting." "Of course," I said. Inside, my pulse was still hammering, but under it was something else. Calm vindication. The rest of the meeting continued as though the first 10 minutes hadn't happened. Brendan kept his head down. Whenever anyone referenced our strategy, they turned their gaze toward me. When questions arose, it was my name on their lips, not his. When the board filed out, Karen tapped my shoulder. "You just pulled off the cleanest save I've ever seen." I managed a small smile. Backups are a consultant's best friend. She leaned closer, whispering so only I could hear. He looked like he was going to evaporate. I followed her out of the room, legs suddenly heavy with the come down. At the elevator, the moment replayed in my head. The blank slides, his face glazing over, the words, "uploaded by L. Mitchell." It wasn't spite I felt, but profound relief. The truth had finally surfaced, and all I'd had to do was let it breathe. Downstairs, in the safety of my cubicle, the adrenaline turned physical. My hands shook so badly, I had to grip the edge of the desk. The flood of Slack messages was relentless. "You saved it. That was legendary. Nepotism's nightmare." I typed back only short replies. "Thanks, appreciate it." But each notification was a quiet vindication. 5 years of being the silent worker, the one who handled the details, had finally been broadcast on a 10-foot screen. Yet I couldn't relax. I knew what came next: retaliation. When families run companies, shame doesn't vanish, it redirects.
2 days later, the summons arrived. The CEO would like to see you in his office. No subject line, no tone, just an order. Walking there, I counted the beats of my shoes against the marble floor to keep composed. The city glowed faintly through the panoramic glass behind Tom Hale's desk. Brendan was already inside, standing off to the side like a chastised child. His expression looked rehearsed, but his eyes were rimmed red. Tom gestured to a chair. "Laura, please, sit." I sat, spine straight. "You wanted to see me, sir?" He leaned back. "I've heard a lot about what happened Monday. I owe you thanks for recovering the presentation. You saved a contract we've been chasing for half a year. Glad I could help." I answered cautiously. His tone was neutral. "Brendan tells me there was a misunderstanding." I met the nephew's gaze. "A misunderstanding tends to leave a folder completely erased and replaced by blank slides." Brendan blurted, "It was an accident. I thought I was cleaning the directory." Tom sighed. "Regardless, the board is already talking. I can't have drama like this reflect on the company. Or our family, you understand." That line, "our family," made my stomach flip. "I understand perfectly." "Good. I plan to move Brendan out of your department. Fresh start." "And the project?" "You'll lead it moving forward. Your contract renewals being reviewed. Consider Monday taken into account." He turned his attention back to a stack of papers, a sign the conversation was over. I stood, thanked him, and walked out before the adrenaline cracked my composure. In the elevator down, I caught sight of Brendan's reflection in the mirrored doors as he exited on another floor. He looked hollow, muttering into his phone. The satisfaction I felt wasn't cruel, it was proportionate. For the first time, I wasn't the one cleaning up someone else's mess, unseen. That week stretched strangely. Work continued, but every corridor hummed with unspoken commentary. People avoided Brendan, he avoided everyone. Karen came by my desk on Thursday morning, coffee in hand. Rumor says Tom's shipping him to a satellite office in Denver. Seriously? Apparently, family is best kept far away right now. He's taking time to gain experience. She smirked over her mug. You'd think deleting 6 months of work might earn lessons sooner. I didn't reply, just focused on the lines of code running across my monitor. But inside, something small and fierce was unfurling, a realization that competence, when exposed, could slice through favoritism like light through fog. That night, lying in bed, sleep eluded me. My mind replayed every detail. I wondered how simple it had been for him to drag my folder to the trash, certain I had no recourse. That assumption, that quiet people have no weapons, is what doomed him. Because my weapon had always been preparation. My revenge wasn't plotted, it was built into my workflow. A few days later, Tom sent an internal memo. Effective immediately, Laura Mitchell will serve as acting project lead for integration strategy. We appreciate her professionalism and technical mastery in recent client engagements. No mention of the incident, but everyone knew. Emails from execs I'd barely spoken to began arriving with subject lines like, "Excellent work this quarter," and "Looking forward to your leadership." I responded to each with measured gratitude, outwardly calm, inwardly steady. I understood that public victories are fragile. You protect them by never boasting. Then, on Friday afternoon, right before closing time, I received one last email from Brendan's corporate account. "Hope you're happy. You embarrassed me in front of my uncle and the board. I'll find somewhere that actually values vision over tattletales." I stared at it for a second, considered replying, then archived it. He still didn't get it. No one had tattletaled. Reality had simply turned the lights back on. The following Monday, his desk was empty. The cleaners removed his nameplate by noon. I walked past the vacant cubicle, the smell of lemon polish sharp in the air, and thought, the trick to revenge is never plotting it at all. Just keep receipts and let arrogance delete itself. But part of me wondered if it was really over. In companies like ours, ghosts of scandal always linger, and sometimes the bigger victory isn't in the exposure. It's what you build afterward. The board presentation had made me visible. What I did with that visibility would decide whether this was just an act of poetic karma or the beginning of an entirely new chapter.
3 months after the presentation day meltdown, my life at Grafton Wilde had shifted in a way I hadn't expected. Visibility changes the temperature of a room. Suddenly, everyone notices when you walk in. Some people greet you with new respect, others with caution, as if they've just realized you might be dangerous. My name now appeared on meeting agendas next to the word lead, and that single word had changed the air around me. I was called into strategy calls with the same executives who once forgot my last name. My badge still opened the same doors, but now people paused to hold them open for me. Brendan, however, became a rumor. The few updates that drifted in were stripped of glamour. The Denver office, the temporary reassignment, the quiet suggestion that it would stay temporary forever. I should have felt victorious, but something about the experience gnawed at me. Winning by accident doesn't feel like mastery, it feels like a narrow escape. I started re-engineering how we worked. The old culture of trust the loudest had let Brendan flourish, so I set out to build something resistant to that weakness. Every client file would have automated version control and daily cloud sync. Every deck would list its author. No more deleted folders, no forgotten names. My team, especially the younger analysts, caught on fast. They nicknamed the new procedure the Mitchell method. It started as a small inside joke, but soon managers from other departments asked about it. One afternoon, an HR partner came by with her notepad. Tom wants to know if we can formalize your process company-wide. That's when it hit me. The very safeguard I'd built to protect myself after an act of sabotage was now turning into a company policy. The first review cycle after the Rutherford deal closed, Karen walked into my cubicle. Her usual brisk pace softened. "Grab a coffee. You're going to want to see this." In the cafe downstairs, she slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a printout, my promotion letter. Manager, Integration Strategy Division. Next to the salary adjustment, a handwritten note. Effective immediately, board approval unanimous. For the first time in years, my voice caught before my brain could perform damage control. "You're serious?" Karen smiled. They remember who saved the contract. They also remember who didn't. The first taste of recognition is complicated. Relief feels like oxygen, but there's also disbelief. You keep waiting for someone to tap your shoulder and tell you there's been a mistake. Halfway through that latte, I realized the fear was gone. What replaced it was something steadier, confidence carefully earned. The weeks that followed blurred into a rhythm of 12-hour days. Rutherford Dynamics became not just a client, but a partner, their analysts quoting pieces of our documentation during their own press briefings. When I caught our logo on the bottom corner of a nationally broadcast slide deck, it felt unreal. At night, when the floor was quiet, I'd sometimes linger at the windows overlooking the city. Its reflection made ghost shapes in the glass. Rows of offices just like ours, filled with people balancing silence and ambition. I wondered how many Lauras were out there, keeping networks alive while someone else rehearsed speeches about synergy. Part of me wanted to reach them somehow, to show that preparation can be its own rebellion. So, I started mentoring. It began informally. A new analyst named Paige stopped by one evening, clearly nervous. "Is it true that you had a backup when the CEO's nephew crashed your meeting?" I nodded. Her eyes widened. "That's legendary. I want to be ready like that, but I don't know where to start." So, we spent an hour walking through her project files, how to document properly, how to set up automatic saves, little habits that make disasters survivable. By the end, she looked lighter. Word spread. Soon I had a small circle of juniors following similar routines. Wednesday night clinics, they called them.
We spent those evenings fixing their workflows and inevitably talking about office politics, about how to stand firm without raising your voice. Those sessions gave me something the promotion hadn't, the sense that the ordeal had meaning beyond my own redemption. One night after a particularly long training session, as I was packing up, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. The area code, Denver. I should have ignored it. Instead, I answered. Laura Mitchell? A pause. Then his voice, strained but unmistakable. It's Brendan. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. I heard paper rustling on his end. Finally, he said, I just wanted to tell you, you were right to back up your work. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard correctly. Come again? You think I deleted it on purpose? Maybe I did. I wanted to prove I could handle it. Wanted Uncle Tom to notice. I didn't realize how bad it would look until the board meeting. I wrecked everything. He barely talks to me now. There was no apology in his voice, just exhaustion. The sound of a balloon letting out the last air. I'm not calling to fix anything, he went on. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to learn. Guess humility's cheaper than another MBA. Some part of me wanted to ask if he was okay, if he had another job lined up. Another part thought silence said enough. Take care of yourself, Brendan, I said finally. Back up everything. You never know when you'll need a second chance. When the call ended, the office around me looked different, cleaner, heavier, a space finally free of the ghost of that rivalry. By the time the next fiscal quarter ended, the company newsletter featured a 2-page spread on the Mitchell method, with photos of my team. Underneath my portrait, the headline read, Preparedness Saves Millions. Tom Hale approved it personally. Later, he stopped by my desk, an awkward apology wrapped in professionalism. He said, I should have seen what was happening sooner. Family doesn't exclude accountability. You reminded us of that. He left before I could respond. It was enough just to see that the lesson had landed somewhere. That evening, as my team celebrated with cheap champagne in paper cups, someone joked, Imagine if your backup hadn't synced. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel, it was relief born out of danger remembered. I raised my cup. I said, Imagine if it hadn't. Then we'd be learning this the hard way next quarter. They laughed again, and something inside my chest eased. The ordeal that began with a missing folder had evolved into a culture. That's the real kind of revenge. Not the downfall of one person, but the building of a system that prevents another like him from rising unnoticed. Still, there was one more chapter I hadn't lived yet, facing the board again. This time, not as a backup plan, but as the lead they trusted. The next board meeting arrived on a wet Thursday morning, thunderclouds dragging over the city and beads of rain crawling down the glass like nervous sweat. Same room, same long table, but everything about it felt different. My name was the first on the agenda. Brendan's wasn't anywhere. When I walked in, the projector glowed with my new title beneath the meeting outline, Manager, Integration Strategy Division. That tiny word in print sent a current through me, stronger than coffee ever could. The boardroom was the same blend of stainless steel, dark wood, and sterile power, yet the energy had shifted. Where I had once hovered near the wall with my laptop, today I took the seat closest to the head of the table. Karen caught my eye from across the room and gave a subtle nod, the kind of small acknowledgement only people who have survived trenches give one another. As the lights dimmed and I began, the room filled with quiet concentration. I delivered quarterly results, detailed timelines, the measurable impact of our new protocols. Every time I mentioned automated versioning or secure cloud sync, someone in the room smiled. Every one of them remembered the panic that had birthed those features. What had nearly ruined me had become a shining point on the company's resume. Halfway through, Tom Hale cleared his throat. "Tom," he said, "before you continue, I'd like to formally thank you for implementing the transparency systems now standard across all departments. Rutherford cites them as a model for vendor reliability. We're considering a company-wide award in your name." The applause that followed wasn't long, but it was genuine, the kind that warms without inflating. I simply nodded and returned to business. Because in that moment, the best revenge wasn't the praise itself, it was the ability to treat it as routine. After the meeting ended, Richard Klein, the CFO, approached as everyone packed up. "You know," he said, lowering his voice, "we tell that story at orientation now, the one about the vanished folder. We use it as a lesson in diligence." I smiled. "Just don't include the family drama." He laughed softly. "We trimmed that part, but your name stayed." As I left the conference room, I passed the glass wall where my reflection had once looked small and uncertain. Now it looked steady, larger somehow, not because of title or recognition, but because it finally took up its own space. The rest of the year unfolded almost too well. The Mitchell method went company-wide by August. New hires received training sessions bearing my logo. Karen got her promotion to director, and she kept her promise to make our division the model of meritocracy. Even Tom, in what I suspect was both humility and catharsis, brought in an outside consultant to audit executive family appointments. The quiet joke around headquarters was, "Nepotism has been discontinued." Every so often, I still received an email from the Denver office, usually from an admin forwarding sales numbers Brendan had sent in. His statistics were decent, his tone restrained. He seemed older in how he wrote, less fireworks, more work. Maybe Denver gave him what privilege never could, distance from mirrors that always told him he was brilliant. I never replied, but I didn't delete them. They were a reminder that redemption exists, even if unspoken.
When December rolled in, the company holiday party felt different from any before. Music pulsed from hidden ceiling speakers, glasses clinked, and laughter rained down the long marble hallway. Glitter mixed with fluorescent light. During a lull, Karen dragged me toward the balcony overlooking downtown. "You realize, don't you," she said, "that this whole year flipped because of one simple reflex, you backing up a folder?" I shook my head. It wasn't reflex, it was habit built from worry. She raised her glass. "Then here's to worry, the unsung hero of accuracy." We laughed, letting the night air cool the champagne glow in our cheeks. Below us, the city moved on, cabs crawling through rain-slick streets, office windows glowing with others still chasing deadlines. Somewhere out there, another corporate war was happening over ego, entitlement, and effort, and perhaps another clerk or analyst was quietly keeping a backup. Driving home later that night, the streets emptying under flickering street lamps, I thought back to that first morning, the sick feeling when I saw that empty folder, the humiliation, the realization I'd been erased, and then the slow reversal that had rewritten everything. It all came down to one truth I hadn't known until then. People can steal credit, presentation slots, even the floor beneath you, but they can't touch readiness. They can't delete competence. Inside every quiet worker lives an undefeated file waiting to open itself at the right moment. The next Monday, I arrived early as always, coffee in hand. The office was tranquil, computers humming like an orchestra tuning. On my desk sat a new brass nameplate, Laura Mitchell, Integration Strategy Manager. The HR intern must have placed it there before hours. The plaque reflected soft gold light from my desk lamp. Beneath it, on a sticky note, Karen had written one simple line: "Justice backed up." I smiled. I turned on the monitor, logged into the network, and watched as the automatic synchronization completed flawlessly, each green checkmark a heartbeat of reassurance, the small digital sound of success.
And somewhere deep in the system, hidden between encrypted layers, sat the original backup, the file titled Rutherford_final_L Mitchell.pppxt. I'd never deleted it. It stayed as both a relic and a reminder. Preparedness is power. I opened a new document and began drafting the next year's strategy plan. The city outside brightened with dawn, the skyline reflecting in strips of glass across the wall. The same skyline that had once watched a career nearly collapse now framed a different story entirely. When people ask me about revenge, I tell them this: real revenge doesn't sound like thunder. It sounds like a hard drive humming quietly while it saves your work. It's routine, repetition, proof that every underestimated person carries a quiet safety net only they know exists. The rest is timing. Brendan's downfall taught me that arrogance always underestimates discipline. He had charm, family, shortcuts. I had patience, structure, and habit. He tried to delete my work. Instead, he deleted his mask. These days, when new hires ask how I stayed calm that day, I tell them a simple truth: because I had copies. Not just of the files, but of myself, distilled through every late night, every corrected draft, every unnoticed save. When someone underestimates you, don't argue, don't shout. Just keep working, keep backing up, and wait. The world always sinks eventually. If you've ever watched someone try to erase your effort, remember Laura's rule. Always keep a backup of your work, of your dignity, and of the truth. Hit subscribe for more real-world office justice and corporate revenge stories uploaded daily, and comment below the moment that made you cheer the loudest. Because sometimes justice isn't loud, it's simply restored.